They said I embarrassed him. The security guard's words echoed in my mind as I stood in that marble lobby at 2 in the morning, termination letter crumpling in my shaking hands. Behind me, the massive screens that usually displayed stock prices now showed footage of what happened 6 hours earlier. Me. Him. Seoul's most powerful people watching everything fall apart. A man who built his empire on embarrassing others. But that night, I did something that changed everything. My reflection stared back from those polished walls, Adaora Okafor, night cleaner turned corporate nightmare. Still wearing my uniform, still carrying my cleaning supplies, but something fundamental had shifted. The invisible woman had become visible, and visibility in Seoul's business district was dangerous. "Ma'am, you need to leave the premises immediately." The security guard approached, his tone gentle but firm. I recognized him, Jean, one of the few people who'd ever smiled at me during my months here. Now his eyes held something I'd never seen before, respect mixed with worry. "I'm gathering my things," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "What you did tonight, that took courage," he whispered, glancing around nervously. "But Chairman Park, he doesn't forget. And his mother." He didn't finish, but I understood. In Korea, public shame was a weapon sharper than any business contract. I had just handed Mrs. Park the biggest humiliation of her family's pristine reputation. I should have turned around right then. But I didn't. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from because you need to hear this, and subscribe to Mystic Tale by Luna, because some secrets are too dangerous to keep buried. The elevator dinged softly as I rode to the 42nd floor one last time. These floors I'd scrubbed every night for 8 months, these offices where I'd overheard million-dollar deals while emptying trash cans. Where I'd slowly learned that power in Seoul wasn't just about money, it was about who you could make disappear. My cart rolled quietly down the hallway, wheels catching on the thick carpet that cost more than most people's annual salary. Everything here was designed to remind you of your place. The height of the ceilings. The weight of the doors. The silence that swallowed any sound that wasn't supposed to be there. "You're working late again, Adaora." I froze. That voice, deep, measured, with the slight American accent from his Harvard MBA. Chairman Park Min-joon never worked this late. Never spoke to cleaning staff. Never knew our names. "Yes, sir. I'll be finished soon." He stepped out of his office, and even at midnight, his suit was perfect. No loosened tie, no rolled sleeves. This was a man who controlled every detail, including how others saw him. His dark eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw something that looked almost like guilt. "You don't have to call me sir when no one else is around." That should have been my first warning. In 8 months of invisible work, he'd never acknowledged my existence. Now he wanted informality. In Korea, where hierarchy was everything, informal address was either intimacy or insult. Coming from him to me, it felt like both. "How is your son's university preparation going?" My blood ran cold. How did he know about David? I'd never mentioned my son to anyone here. Had never spoken about my family, my struggles, my dreams of him succeeding where I'd been forced to step back. "He's doing well," I managed, my voice careful. "Smart boy, I'm sure. Good grades?" "The best." Pride crept into my voice despite every instinct telling me to stay invisible. David was brilliant, acceptance letters from universities across 3 continents, scholarship opportunities that could change our family's entire trajectory. Everything I'd sacrificed my career for. "Education is so important," he said, leaning against his office doorframe. "Merit should always be rewarded, don't you think?" "Yes, sir. I believe that completely." Something flickered across his face, too quick to read, too complex to understand. Later, I would replay this moment and see it clearly, the exact second he decided to destroy my son's future while looking me in the eye. Have a good evening, Ada. I watched him walk toward the elevator, his leather shoes silent on marble floors. Everything about him spoke of absolute control, of a man who'd never been told no, never been challenged, never been forced to justify his decisions to anyone he considered beneath him. That's when I found it. Crumpled in his private waste basket, not the main office trash, but the small bin beside his desk that only he used. Scholarship applications. Dozens of them. All international students. All rejected with the same red stamp, the same handwritten note in his precise script. My hands trembled as I smoothed out the paper at the bottom. David's application. His perfect grades, his essays about bridging cultures through technology, his recommendation letters from professors who called him exceptional. Rejected. Red ink across his dreams like blood. The handwritten note made my vision blur. Nigerian applicants lacked the discipline required for academic excellence in Korean institutions. Cultural compatibility concerns. That's when I understood. This wasn't about qualifications. This was about keeping people like us exactly where they wanted us, invisible and grateful for scraps. I sat in that empty office at 3 a.m, holding my son's crushed future in my hands. The man who'd just asked about David's education with such apparent interest had personally ensured he'd never get the chance to prove himself. 8 months of scrubbing floors to pay for David's test prep. 8 months of overtime to afford his application fees. 8 months of believing that merit mattered in a system designed to exclude us. But something else burned through the devastation. Something that felt like my grandmother's voice reminding me that strength runs in our bloodline. That some battles are worth fighting even when you know the cost. Chairman Park had made his biggest mistake that night. He'd let the invisible woman see exactly how visible she could become. Do you really think education can change everything? The question hung in the air between us, 3 months earlier. I was supposed to be cleaning his office, but Chairman Park had started these conversations that made me forget I was supposed to be invisible. Made me forget that in this gleaming tower, I was just another piece of equipment. I have to believe it can, I answered, not looking up from organizing his bookshelf. Otherwise, what's the point of sacrifice? Tell me about your son. My hands stilled on the leather spines of books that cost more than my monthly salary. This was dangerous territory. Personal questions meant personal interest, and personal interest between a billionaire and his cleaning staff was a story that never ended well. He's 17. Brilliant. Dreams bigger than I ever dared to. What kind of dreams? I turned to face him then, really face him. Park Min-joon at midnight looked different than the ruthless chairman the business world feared. Tired lines around his eyes. Suit jacket draped over his chair instead of perfectly fitted. Almost human. Technology. Innovation. He wants to build bridges between cultures through business partnerships. Nigeria and Asia have so much potential for collaboration. That's remarkably sophisticated thinking for someone his age. You sound surprised. He shifted uncomfortably. The first crack in his perfect composure I'd ever seen. I didn't mean. You did mean it. You meant exactly what you said. The silence stretched between us like a test. In my country, we call this kind of moment showing your true face. When politeness stops hiding what someone really thinks about who you are. You're not what I expected, he said finally. What did you expect? Someone simpler. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Simple. Like grateful and quiet and grateful again? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He walked to the massive windows overlooking Seoul's skyline, his back to me. From here, the city looked like scattered diamonds against black velvet. Beautiful and cold and untouchable. Most people want something from me. Money, connections, opportunities. But you ask questions about trade policies and cultural integration like we're colleagues. Aren't we both working towards success? Just with different starting points? He turned back, studying my face like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. You have a degree, don't you? Two, actually. Economics and International Relations. University of Lagos. Then why are you cleaning your office at midnight? Because degrees don't transfer easily. Because visa restrictions limit work options. Because single mothers do what they must to survive. The honesty hung between us like a bridge neither of us knew how to cross. In Lagos, I'd taught university students about global economic systems. Here, I emptied the trash cans of men who implemented those systems. You could be doing so much more than this, he said quietly. Could I? In your world, what exactly could I be doing? He had no answer for that. Because we both knew his world had very specific places for people like me, and none of them involved sitting at conference tables or sharing ideas as equals. Sometimes I stay late just to talk with someone who doesn't want anything from me, he admitted. Everyone wants something, Chairman Park. The question is whether they're honest about it. What do you want? I considered lying. Saying I wanted nothing. Keeping myself safe in the invisible space I'd learned to occupy. But something about midnight conversations and empty offices made truth feel possible. I want my son to have opportunities one never had. I want intelligence to matter more than background. I want to use my education for something bigger than surviving. And from me specifically? The question felt like a trap, but also like an opening. Like he was asking for permission to offer something he wasn't sure he could deliver. Recognition that I exist as more than just the woman who cleans up after your success. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his expensive cologne mixed with coffee and exhaustion. Close enough to see that his eyes weren't cold at all, they were tired and searching and surprisingly vulnerable. You're the most interesting person I've talked to in years. Interesting enough to be seen with in daylight? The question escaped before I could stop it. Too direct. Too dangerous. Too revealing of the impossible thoughts I'd been having during these midnight conversations. His face changed instantly. Shutters slamming down over any warmth I'd imagined I'd seen. The chairman was back, and the tired man I'd been talking to disappeared. This was a mistake, he said, his voice flat and professional. You're not someone I can be seen with. The words hit like ice water. Not because they were surprising, but because they confirmed every fear I'd been trying to ignore. All those late-night conversations, all that intellectual respect, all those moments of almost connection, they were real for me and entertainment for him. Being seen with me would embarrass you? I asked, my voice steady despite the humiliation burning in my chest. Then you've never truly seen me at all. I turned back to my cleaning cart, hands shaking as I gathered my supplies. The books I'd been organizing seemed to mock me now, volumes on leadership and innovation and global thinking, owned by a man who couldn't see past the color of my skin or the uniform I wore. Adaora, I didn't mean. You meant exactly what you said. Just like earlier. I pushed my cart toward the elevator, each step echoing in the silence. Behind me, I heard him call my name once more, but I didn't turn around. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt with pretty words. But the damage was deeper than wounded pride. Because 3 weeks after that conversation, I'd started hoping. Started imagining that maybe someone in his position could see past the assumptions everyone else made about who I was and what I deserved. Ma'am? Mrs. Okafor? Secretary Kim's voice pulled me back to the present. She was standing in the doorway, holding a stack of papers with David's scholarship application visible on top. I'm sorry to disturb you, but I found these in Chairman Park's personal files. I thought you should know. She handed me the documents, her expression carefully neutral. But I caught something in her eyes, sympathy mixed with warning. Know what? I asked, though dread was already pooling in my stomach. He reviews every scholarship application personally. Every single one. These have been in his desk for 2 months. I flipped through the pages, seeing David's perfect application, his recommendation letters, his essay about using technology to bridge cultural divides. Everything meticulously prepared, professionally presented, undeniably qualified. Then I saw the notes in the margins. Min Jun's handwriting, commenting on each section. Excellent academic record, concerning overconfidence. Strong recommendations, typical grade inflation. Cultural bridge essay, naive idealism. And at the bottom, the final verdict, asterisk, Nigerian applicants consistently lack the discipline required for our academic standards. Cultural compatibility remains questionable. Asterisk. How long has he been rejecting qualified applicants like this? I whispered. Secretary Kim glanced around nervously before answering. Years. He has very specific ideas about who deserves opportunities in this country. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Every midnight conversation where he'd praised David's intelligence. Every moment he'd seemed genuinely interested in my son's future. Every time he'd spoken about merit and opportunity and the importance of education. All while ensuring my son would never get the chance to prove himself. There's more, Secretary Kim said softly. He knows David is your son. He's known from the beginning. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not coincidence. Not separate worlds accidentally intersecting. Calculated cruelty dressed up as late-night friendship. Why are you telling me this? Because someone should. Because what he's doing isn't right. And because. She hesitated, then continued. Because you deserved better than being played like that. I stood there holding my son's dreams in my hands, understanding finally that every kind word, every intellectual conversation, every moment of almost respect had been a lie. Not just indifference, active, deliberate deception while he destroyed the future I'd been working toward. The man I'd started to trust, maybe even started to care for, had been systematically ensuring my family stayed exactly where his world wanted us, grateful for scraps and invisible when convenient. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. Not just for me, but for every person he'd ever made feel small and worthless and disposable. Chairman Park Min-jun was about to learn what happened when you underestimated a woman who had nothing left to lose except her dignity. And dignity, as it turned out, was the one thing he couldn't take away. You can't be serious about this plan. My sister's voice crackled through the phone at 6 in the morning. I was standing in my tiny apartment, staring at the invitation I'd found in David's email, the annual Park Industries Gala, celebrating their global diversity initiatives. The irony made my stomach turn. I'm completely serious, Chioma. Adaora, this is madness. You'll lose your visa. They'll deport you both. They already destroyed David's future. What exactly am I protecting now? The silence on the other end told me she understood. My sister knew what it meant when I used that tone, the same voice I'd used before confronting our father about his gambling debts, before leaving my university position to chase better opportunities abroad. What exactly are you planning to do? I'm going to that gala. As David's mother. As someone who deserves answers. And then what? Then I'm going to ask Chairman Park to explain his diversity policies in front of all his wealthy friends. Another silence. Longer this time. You're going to destroy yourself for revenge. This isn't revenge, Chioma. This is justice. There's a difference. Is there? When you're the one holding the weapon? I hung up because I didn't have an answer that wouldn't sound like rationalization. Maybe it was revenge. Maybe justice and revenge looked identical when you were the one who'd been systematically humiliated. But I thought about all the other applications in that trash can. All the other dreams crumpled up and discarded by a man who preached merit while practicing prejudice. Mom? What are you doing up so early? David emerged from his room, school uniform perfectly pressed, backpack organized for another day of chasing excellence that apparently meant nothing to the people who controlled his future. Just thinking about your scholarship applications, baby. Any word yet? The hope in his voice nearly broke me. 3 months of waiting, checking email every morning, believing that his hard work would be rewarded. Never knowing that his fate had been decided by someone who thought his entire nationality disqualified him from success. Not yet. But soon. He kissed my cheek and headed for the door, calling back, "I love you, Mom. Everything you've sacrificed will be worth it, I promise." The door closed behind him, leaving me alone with my rage and the coral beads my grandmother had given me before I left Nigeria. "Wear these when you need to remember who you are," she'd said. "When the world tries to make you smaller than your truth." Today, I would wear them into battle. By evening, I'd borrowed my neighbor's black dress, practiced my speech in both English and formal address patterns, and prepared for war. Mrs. Chen from the dry cleaners had even helped me with makeup, though she kept asking why I suddenly needed to look presentable for important people. Because important people need to see me clearly, I told her. The Park Industries building looked different at night, less like a workplace and more like a fortress. Luxury cars lined the circular drive. Men in designer suits and women dripping with jewelry flowing through glass doors like they owned the world. Maybe they did. "Invitation, please." The security guard was polite but firm. I handed him the printed email, David's acceptance to the gala as a scholarship candidate. The lie felt necessary. If I was going to confront the system, I needed to be inside it first. "Welcome to Park Industries, Mrs. Okafor." The ballroom was exactly what I'd expected, crystal chandeliers casting rainbows on marble floors, champagne flowing like water, conversations conducted in hushed tones that somehow still managed to exclude anyone who didn't belong. I walked through clusters of Seoul's elite, hearing fragments of conversation about stock prices and political connections and vacation homes in places I'd never see. Every step reminded me why I didn't belong here. But belonging wasn't the point anymore. Truth was the point. "Excuse me, aren't you the woman who cleans the offices upstairs?" I turned to find Mrs. Park, Chairman Park's mother, staring at me with barely concealed disgust. Even at 70, she was formidable, carrying herself like royalty addressing a servant who'd forgotten her place. "I am David Okafor's mother," I replied, using the formal address patterns I'd practiced. He was invited as a scholarship candidate. Scholarship candidate? That's impossible. We don't give scholarships to. She paused, looking me up and down with calculation that felt like violence. To people like me? To people who don't understand their appropriate role in society. The words hung between us like a declaration of war. Around us, conversations continued, but I felt eyes turning toward our exchange. The exotic conflict providing entertainment for people who'd never questioned their right to occupy these spaces. And what role would that be? Grateful service. Quiet contribution. Knowing when to remain invisible. Invisible while my son's brilliance gets discarded because of his last name? Her smile was sharp as broken glass. Your son's application was reviewed fairly. If he was rejected, perhaps the standards here are simply higher than what he's accustomed to. Higher standards. Is that what you call systematic prejudice now? I call it maintaining excellence. Something your people wouldn't understand. The racism was so casual, so confident, that it took my breath away. This wasn't hidden bias, this was active, proud discrimination spoken aloud because she believed no one would challenge her. My people, I repeated slowly. And what exactly do you know about my people? I know you're here seeking charity instead of earning your place. Mrs. Park, with respect. You will address me properly. With respect, I have 2 degrees and 10 years of university teaching experience. I'm here because your son destroyed my child's future while pretending to value his intelligence. Her composure cracked slightly. You're delusional if you think my son pays attention to scholarship applications. He reviewed David's personally. Rejected it personally. While asking me about David's dreams during our late-night conversations. Late-night conversations? Her voice rose just enough for nearby people to notice. What exactly are you implying? I'm implying nothing. I'm stating facts. Your son spent months talking with me about education and merit while ensuring my son would never benefit from either. Mrs. Park's face went white, then red. The public nature of our exchange was clearly her worst nightmare, family business exposed in front of the social circle whose opinion determined everything in her world. You will not speak about my family with such disrespect. Then perhaps your family shouldn't have disrespected mine first. Security. But before anyone could respond, another voice cut through the tension. Mother, what's happening here? Chairman Park approached, his face a careful mask of public composure. But I saw the recognition in his eyes, the panic he was trying to hide. He'd never expected to see me here, in his world, speaking as an equal instead of staying safely invisible. This woman is making inappropriate accusations about you, Mrs. Park said, her voice tight with fury. Inappropriate? I faced him directly, my grandmother's coral beads warm against my throat. Is it inappropriate to ask why you rejected my son's scholarship application with a note about cultural compatibility? His composed mask slipped. Just for a moment, but enough for the watching crowd to see uncertainty where they'd only ever seen absolute control. I review hundreds of applications. I don't recall. You don't recall writing that Nigerian applicants lack academic discipline? You don't recall our conversations about David's future while you ensured he wouldn't have one? Our conversations were. He glanced around at the growing audience, realizing that every word was being recorded by phones held by people who traded information like currency. They were professional courtesy. Professional courtesy. Is that what you call months of late-night talks about education and merit and the importance of giving talented young people opportunities? His mother's face was pure horror now. In her world, the very suggestion of personal interaction with staff was social suicide. Family reputation was everything, and I was destroying theirs one truthful word at a time. You're taking those conversations out of context, he said, his voice strained. What context makes it acceptable to discuss my son's brilliance with me while ensuring he never gets to demonstrate it? That's enough. Mrs. Park stepped forward, her voice carrying across the ballroom. Security, remove this woman immediately. But something had shifted in the crowd. Phones were out. Videos were recording. Seoul's social elite were witnessing the untouchable Park family being challenged by a woman they'd all dismissed as invisible. Remove me for asking questions about your diversity policies? I asked, my voice carrying clearly across the marble space. At your gala celebrating global inclusion? Chairman Park's hands were shaking now. The most ruthless man in Seoul, reduced to stammering damage control in front of everyone whose respect he'd built his identity on. This is a private event, he managed. Then perhaps you should have kept your scholarship rejections private too. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Have you ever felt that moment when everything you believe just shatters? Tell me in the comments, because right now, I need to know I'm not the only one who's been this afraid. The silence in that ballroom was deafening. Hundreds of people who'd never questioned their right to exclude others watching a single mother from Nigeria expose the cruelty that built their perfect world. And for the first time in months, I wasn't invisible anymore. The video has 3 million views. Secretary Kim's voice was barely a whisper as she called me the next morning. I was sitting in my kitchen, still wearing yesterday's borrowed dress, watching David eat breakfast while completely unaware that his mother had just destroyed her own life on live social media. 3 million people watched me humiliate myself. 3 million people watched you speak truth to power. The comments. Adaora, you need to see the comments. I didn't want to see anything. I wanted to pack our bags and disappear before the consequences caught up with us. Before Chairman Park's lawyers found ways to destroy us that I couldn't even imagine. Mom, you look terrible. Did you sleep? David was studying my face with the concerned expression he'd inherited from his father, too much worry for someone his age. My brilliant boy who still believed hard work would be enough. I'm fine, baby. Just tired. The scholarship results should come this week. I keep checking my email every 5 minutes. My heart cracked open. How could I tell him? How could I explain that his dreams had been crushed by someone I'd trusted, someone I'd almost let myself care for? David, we need to talk about. The doorbell interrupted me. At 8 in the morning, unexpected visitors meant trouble. Immigration officers, maybe. Or Park Industries' legal team with cease and desist orders. I opened the door to find Chairman Park Min-jun standing in my hallway. He looked like he hadn't slept either. His perfect suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his face gray with exhaustion and something that might have been shame. What are you doing here? I came to apologize. Apologize? The word tasted bitter. Is that supposed to fix everything? No. Nothing can fix what I did. But I needed to try. David appeared behind me, eyes wide with recognition. That's Chairman Park. From the business magazines. Mom, why is he here? The moment stretched like a knife edge. Tell the truth and watch David's hero worship die. Lie and protect his innocence a little longer. He came to discuss your scholarship application. My application? David's voice climbed with excitement. Did I get it? Is that why you're here? Chairman Park looked at David, really looked at him, and I saw something shift in his expression. This wasn't the abstract concept of a Nigerian student he could dismiss on paper. This was a real teenager with bright eyes and bigger dreams, looking at him like he held the key to everything. David, right? May I come in? Of course. Mom, can you make coffee? This is incredible. I led them to our small living room, watching Chairman Park take in our modest apartment. The textbooks stacked everywhere. David's academic awards covering one wall. The framed photo of my graduation day in Lagos, young and hopeful in my cap and gown. Your mother tells me you're interested in technology and cultural business partnerships. Yes, sir. Nigeria and Asia have incredible potential for collaboration. The tech infrastructure in Lagos is exploding, and with the right partnerships. David launched into his vision with the passion that had made me believe anything was possible for him. I watched Chairman Park's face as my son spoke, seeing something I'd never expected, genuine respect. That's remarkably sophisticated analysis. Thank you, sir. My mom taught me to think globally. She says intelligence has no nationality. The words hit their target. Chairman Park's composure cracked, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely ashamed. David, could you give your mother and me a moment to discuss the details privately? Of course. I'll be in my room if you need anything. David practically bounced out, leaving us alone with the weight of everything unsaid. He doesn't know, does he? Chairman Park asked quietly. That you rejected his application? That you spent months lying to me about merit while ensuring he'd never have a chance to prove himself? No. He doesn't know yet. I deserved everything you said last night. You deserved worse. He flinched like I'd hit him. Good. Let him feel a fraction of the pain he'd caused. The board met this morning. They're demanding my resignation. Because of me? Because of me. Because they finally saw what I really am instead of what I pretended to be. I studied his face, looking for the manipulation I'd learned to expect. But all I saw was exhaustion and something that looked like genuine regret. Your mother called me delusional. Said people like me don't understand excellence. My mother is wrong about many things. She was wrong about you. Was she? Or was she just honest about what you really think? He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the photo of my graduation day. When did you graduate? 15 years ago. Top of my class. Full honors. And you've been cleaning offices because degrees from African universities don't impress people like you. Because single mothers need visa sponsorship from employers who see us as disposable. Because the world you control has very specific places for people like me. I never thought about it that way. No. You didn't think about it at all. That was the problem. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out an official document. David's scholarship approval, full funding, public apology attached, immediate acceptance. This doesn't fix anything between us, he said quietly. But maybe it's a start toward fixing what I broke. I stared at the papers, emotions warring in my chest. Relief for David. Fury at the months of unnecessary struggle. Confusion about what this gesture really meant. Why now? Because I embarrassed you publicly? Because you were right. About merit. About dignity. About everything I claimed to believe but never actually practiced. And what exactly am I supposed to do with this revelation? Whatever you think is right. Accept it for David. Reject it on principle. Use it to destroy me further. You have every right to any choice you make. The power in that moment was dizzying. For months, he'd held all the cards. Now I was the one deciding what happened next. Will you change how you review applications from students like David? I've already implemented new policies. Anonymous review processes. Cultural bias training for all selection committees. Public reporting on diversity metrics. Because of last night? Because of you. Because you showed me what I'd become. I looked at David's acceptance letter, thinking about my son's face when I told him his dreams were still possible. About all the other parents who'd never get this conversation, whose children would remain casualties of systems they couldn't challenge. I'm not accepting this as forgiveness, I said finally. I'm accepting it as what David earned through his own merit. I understand. And I'm not protecting your reputation. What you did was wrong, and people should know about it. They do know. The video made sure of that. Good. He stood to leave, pausing at the door. For what it's worth, those late-night conversations, they were the most honest I'd been in years. Honesty requires consequences, Chairman Park. You can't just apologize away systematic cruelty and expect forgiveness. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to do better. After he left, I sat holding David's future in my hands, thinking about power and dignity and the price of speaking truth to systems built on silence. When David came running out of his room after I called him, when I handed him that acceptance letter and watched his face light up with pure joy, I knew I'd made the right choice. Not for Chairman Park's redemption. Not for healing our broken connection. For every child who deserved to dream without limits. Mom, this is incredible. How did this happen? Because sometimes, baby, standing up for what's right is the only choice that matters. 6 months later, David was thriving at university. I'd started working as a cultural consultant, helping companies understand the difference between diversity initiatives and actual inclusion. Chairman Park had stepped down, replaced by leaders who understood that true strength comes from lifting others up, not keeping them down. Some people say I was lucky that night. That speaking out could have destroyed us both. But luck had nothing to do with it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to be invisible anymore. Sometimes dignity is the only weapon you need to defeat an empire built on making others feel small. Everyone feared the ruthless billionaire until they realized that fear only works on people who have something left to lose. And I had already lost everything except my voice. Turns out, that was enough.